Coming to you from a cozy little condo high atop Old 4th Ward, Atlanta. Welcome to The Ron Show on America One Radio. Here's your host, Ron Roberts.
All right, happy Thursday. Thank you for listening, whether it's on the America One Radio app, AmericaOneRadio.com, on demand at ProgressiveVoices.com, or via podcast, wherever and however you do so. Somebody messaged me that day. I listen to you when I'm in the tub. Okay. Can't possibly sit in the tub for 44 and a half minutes every day, though, right? I mean, that's not good for your skin. You kind of start to prune up. Anyway, I think they were coming on to me, honestly. Let's get to the headlines, awkwardly. Everything is upside down land right now, right? The Law and Order Party is telling us that our judicial system is so unfair and is hyper-targeting and marginalizing one guy, a powerful, access to wealth politician and celebrity isn't getting a fair shake. After decades and centuries of the left saying, you know, our judicial system is a bit biased against certain people, right? And their response was usually, oh, no. This is the way our justice system is supposed to work. And now that it's kind of doing some work against their cult hero, again, it's upside down land. The Law and Order Party is like, this judicial system, this is corrupt. It's rife. It's with corruption. And oh my gosh, the judge's daughter has this job. And all of a sudden, I'm sorry, the nepotism party is what's really funny to me. Because, you know, Ivanka, Jared, Eric, Don Jr., hell, let's go back. Jeb, W. I mean, we could go back. We could go on and on and on with the nepotism, right? Ginny Thomas gets to have her little side hustles, and now Sam Alito's wife gets to have a flag-hanging hobby. But no, we're going to talk about Judge Marchand's daughter having a job. How dare she? And I mean, listen, I haven't talked much about the Trump trial. I know the jury's in deliberation today, and watching cable news has been sort of hilarious because no matter which channel you go to, they all have their theories. I love, by the way, CNN, MSNBC, they bring in these experts, and some of them may have their biases, although I tend to think that facts, data, science, math, the truth, all have a liberal bias. Nonetheless, I really do enjoy watching CNN and NBC News and MSNBC and even ABC News with David Muir. Like they bring these experts on and they weigh the credibility of testimony and evidence, and then they meticulously discuss, well, what does it mean when the jury asks this question, or to review their instructions, and real intellectual dialogue. And they all have their theories, and they're all kind of like, okay, that could be, maybe. As I watch it, that's what I'm saying. You go to Fox News, and oh my God, it's just attacking Judge Marchand. It's just replaying Donald Trump's quips outside the courtroom. He yesterday spending time complaining about all these witnesses that they could have called. Not the prosecution. Well, no, he's actually complaining that the prosecution didn't call these witnesses. But his lawyer, who could have called witnesses himself, is standing right behind him as he's complaining about this. So awkward. Anyway, as much as I'd love to talk about the Trump trial, and I may get back to it here in just a little bit, let's focus close to home. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution's Politically Georgia blog this morning reporting that Senator John Ossoff went to the U.S.-Mexico border. I'm telling y'all, it's upside down land. Senator John Ossoff became the rare Democrat to do the same as Marjorie Taylor Greene, Buddy Carter, Brian Kemp's been there. Yesterday, it was Democratic Senator John Ossoff, the rare Democrat, they write, to do the same with stops in Texas, New Mexico, and Juarez, Mexico. He toured detention facilities, the Paso del Norte port of entry, and met with U.S. and Mexican law enforcement and national security officials. Politically Georgia bloggers write, the Atlantan sits on the Senate Intelligence Committee and has been warning for months that federal officials' inability to limit and then track incoming migrants is creating a dangerous domestic terror threat that isn't getting enough attention. And he renewed that warning Wednesday from the border. Let me read you his statement. The threat of terrorism associated with unlawful entry at the southern border is real and pressing. Every day Congress fails to pass a border security measure, the risk increases. Yet today, Senate Republicans blocked the Senate even from debating and considering amendments to the Bipartisan Border Act, which would have rushed enforcement resources to the border, tightened asylum standards, expedited the removal of those who abused the asylum system to enter the country unlawfully, and hired more Border Patrol officers. Senate Republicans bent to pressure from former President Trump to keep the border in chaos so he can wield it as an election issue. As Republican Senator James Lankford, a co-author of the Border Act, recently said on Fox News, President Trump said don't fix anything during the presidential election. Today, Trump's allies in Congress failed the American people and left our nation at risk. I will continue applying maximum pressure on my Republican colleagues to work across the aisle to pass a bipartisan border security bill, just as I continue to call on the Biden administration to use its executive authorities to address the crisis. We're in upside down land. We have Democrats now going, well, a Democrat going to the border to call attention to inaction on border security by the other party. To his credit, Senator Ossoff's been talking about this for a while, back in April.
No one, and I mean no one, is interested in or takes seriously lectures on border security from Senate Republicans. No one. In one of the most stunning acts of political cowardice in recent American history, a bipartisan border security bill co-authored by a conservative Republican member of this committee was put forward in the U.S. Senate. It would have tightened asylum standards to stop exploitation of the asylum system. It would have surged enforcement resources to the border. It would have meant more expedited removals of those who enter this country unlawfully. It would have empowered the federal government to take the fight to the drug cartels who are laying waste to communities across our country with fentanyl. A bipartisan border security bill co-authored by a conservative Republican member of this committee. And it wasn't just voted down by Senate Republicans, it was denied even a debate on the floor of the United States Senate. Because the former president of the United States, and he said this publicly, thought it wasn't in his political interest for the nation to be served. It wasn't in his political interest for a bipartisan border security bill to be enacted by Congress. The American people are smart. So all of the performative chest pounding today on border security is utterly disingenuous. When Senate Republicans abrogated their basic governing responsibility and refused even to let us debate and amend that bipartisan border security proposal.
And they did it again yesterday. And John Ossoff is doing the smart thing. He's taking the message to the American people that the Republicans have been preening and fawning and pearl clutching and feigning unrighteous indignation about border policy that they have had absolutely no appetite for dealing with because it's a campaign issue for them. And it's not as if Republicans don't do this about a lot of things. They kicked the can down the road on infrastructure during the Obama presidency for a full 8 years. And then couldn't get anything done when Trump was in office, and maybe Democrats turned the table a little bit. I don't know. But boy, when Biden got that infrastructure bill passed and signed into law, Trump was pissed because that was supposed to be his. That was supposed to be one of his crowning achievements. And man, it would have been. It absolutely would have been. but he couldn't get it done. Yeah, for one, I appreciate that John Ossoff is out here doing this. And I keep thinking, what are his long-term goals here? Is he going to simply re-up for 2026, which I think he will? But is he going to be satisfied with that? Or is he putting his eye on 2028? I know a lot of folks are like, he can't run for Senate and then 2 years in decide to run for president. Sure. I mean, Barack Obama kind of did that. And honestly, John Ossoff will have had a full Senate term and then some. The crazy thing that you have to wonder is, if John Ossoff is positioning himself not only to run for re-election in the U.S. Senate in 2026, but also like almost immediately have to turn around and pivot to run for president. I mean, these cycles are damn near 2-year cycles now, right? You just have to wonder if he's giving any consideration to that whatsoever. This is a position that he's taking that is not just strictly party dogma platform. It's what I call it. It's what my friend who's running for a congressional seat in South Carolina calls common sense for the common good. Mal Hyman, friend of the show, he's been on several times. He's running on the overarching platform, common sense for the common good. And I see a lot of that in John Ossoff, too. John Ossoff has done a lot of things in a bipartisan manner and reached across the aisle to get the very little that this Congress can get done. And I think he's really threading the needle here by focusing more on the inaction available legislatively because of Republican posturing at the behest of the former president, who is again seeking the office that he covets so dearly. While also just saying, the president could do some stuff too. Very quietly. If you've listened to this show for the last 17, 18 months, however long I've been doing this, I've been a proponent of John Ossoff as that rising star in the Democratic Party. Not that, but a rising star in the Democratic Party. I'm telling you, just put a pin in this. This is something to think about with 2028. Certain to be conversation fodder just as soon as 2024 cycle's over. Back after this, The Ron Show on America One Radio. You can call The Ron Show if you'd like. You can also just send a text message, too. I tell my friends, do that first. I mean, you guys do what you want. But my friends, text me first. 404-919-2725. At Ron Show ATL on Facebook, the X Twitter platform, Instagram threads. RonShowATL.com is the website for show notes if you want to ever go back and pay any attention to the notes that I take and the citations that I give. Anything you hear me read that I'm citing, because I was taught to do that in grade school, y'all. I do that via show notes at RonShowATL.com. Lucy McBath was on yesterday's Atlanta Journal-Constitution WABE Politically Georgia podcast, and fresh off of her primary victory in another new district for her. I mean, she has served almost all of Metro Atlanta north of I-20 now in various chunks of geography. She just won the Democratic primary and will now head to the general election with an opportunity to serve essentially a third separate district. Anyway, Greg Bluestein at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, part of the Politically Georgia podcast tandem there, asked her about other office aspirations.
Congresswoman, as Tia said, the silver lining for you for all this redistricting is you've now represented a big chunk of Metro Atlanta, a big chunk of Georgia's population. You've beaten both Democrats and Republicans in tough races. I know you're focused on November. I know you're going to focus on your reelection battle, but you won a Democratic primary with more than 80% of the vote just a few weeks ago. What does that hold for your future? You've got to be thinking about 2026. Democrats are buzzing about you as a potential statewide candidate. How do you approach that?
Well, it just tickles me pink every time someone says to me. I actually had a neighbor this morning when I was walking my dog in the neighborhood. She says, "Are you thinking about running for governor?" And I said, "Look, I am really trying my best right now to stay focused on this campaign for November. But I do believe that Georgia residents deserve to have leadership that is centered and focused directly on their needs, keeping them safe, keeping them healthy." And I will say, as I said, I've never expected to be in the spaces and places that I'm in now. I'm very grateful to God for being able to serve. But I've always let God determine my path. I've always let God determine where I serve, how I serve, and what I do, because I believe I've been sent to Washington. Everything that we've experienced, all my lived experiences, I believe give me great credibility to fight and champion for our constituents and Georgia residents. So wherever God leads me, I will go.
So you're not ruling anything out right now?
Wherever God leads me, I will go.
Well, with that in mind, I mean, clearly in Governor Kemp particularly, you have a governor who has pushed forward looser and looser restrictions on guns, carrying guns anywhere, basically. In an opportunity to run for governor and perhaps to win would give you the chance to showcase what has been the central issue of your life since the loss of your son, the need for Georgia to change its approach to guns.
I have to say it's absolutely ludicrous and very frightening that we would advocate that our teachers be armed here in the state of Georgia. And I can tell you, every teacher that I have spoken with, every family, in particular mother, every family member, every mother that I've spoken with, they are scared to death and think that is the most atrocious idea ever. There are other ways to keep our children safe in schools. There are other ways to keep our community safe. I was so excited and happy to be a large part of the first ever of its kind comprehensive gun safety legislation that has been passed in this country in decades, signed into law by President Biden. But also, too, making sure that this administration, I'm just really excited because they're making sure that this is an issue that is dealt with 24 hours a day. Now we have, for the first time ever in any presidency, a full-time Office of Gun Violence Prevention. And so a lot of the work that I have done with the Bipartisan Safer Communities Law, the red flag funding for states, that was my work. Community violence intervention funding for a lot of good organizations that are on the ground in their communities, understaffed, short of funds, now have access to resources to help break that cycle of violence, which is a precursor to gun violence. So I say arming our teachers is not the answer. And any leadership that we have in the state of Georgia needs to unequivocally understand that our constituents, our residents deserve to be safe with common sense forms of legislation that really keep them safe.
And while I have absolutely no disagreement with what she's saying, I will say this. The knock on Lucy McBath outside the Democratic Party bubble is that she is a one-issue politician. I mean, that's not the case when you look at her record, but that is the perception on the street. If Lucy McBath seriously wants to consider running for governor, and again, I mean, we're still in the midst of the 2024 cycle, and 2026 is still a good ways away. If she wants to consider running for governor in 2026, she's really got to sharpen her stick. She's got to beef up her bona fides, her muscles on issues other than gun legislation in the state of Georgia. And in fact, I almost worry that if she were to run for governor and were to become the nominee, it's going to be so much a focus of anyone who opposes her, Burt Jones, that I hesitate to put all my stock, and I like Lucy McBath. As a Democrat, I hesitate to put my stock in Lucy McBath for a gubernatorial candidate, much in the same way the first time Stacey Abrams said something about Stone Mountain and taking the carving off the mountain. I cringed because not because I don't agree that it's an ugly scar, a reminder of the past, another Civil War Confederate commemoration that just doesn't need to be anymore. It was just one of those things where you're like, man, this is one of those things where like folks on the margins, even those who may consider themselves to be a little bit more of a liberal voter, but aka Southern Democrat, they're going to look at that and go, I'm not so sure about that. Now, the one thing I will say about Lucy that I can't say about Stacey is that Lucy McBath's not afraid to go run in rural parts of the state. I mean, she's now in her 3rd district, and there are rural portions of each of her districts, and she's not afraid to go to them and speak to the constituency no matter where they are. I mean, do you know how hard it is to run for a congressional district that is brand new turf to you, where these folks don't know you but know of you? She's had to do that now on a 3rd occasion. Of course, the first time she ran in the district she actually lived in, and then keeps getting gerrymandered into new ones. Back after this, The Ron Show on the American One Radio app, AmericanOneRadio.com, wherever you podcast.
Broadcasting 5 days a week to make common sense common again. This is The Ron Show on America One Radio.
I readily admit to being vastly more cynical at this point in my life than at any point ever before in my 50 years on this planet. And a lot of that is steeped in the fact that I grew up in a rural-ish suburban community, a bedroom community for a military base. Back then it was called Fort Gordon. What is it now? Fort Eisenhower? Outside Augusta, Georgia. I should keep up with that, right? And we used to go out to Barton Field every July 4th, and we'd listen to the amazing U.S. Army Signal Corps Band playing all that patriotic music, the stuff that just as a kid would give you goosebumps, and maybe as an adult still does. And then you'd see wonderful fireworks shows. You'd see the men and the women in uniform, various sizes, shapes, colors, ethnicities, from different parts of the country, some even the world, all coming together. And I don't know, it's hard not to get swept up in that sort of stuff. And then today, we're on pins and needles waiting for a 12-person jury, holding our breath that the one that they let on the jury, who said openly that he gets his news from Truth Social, the defendant's owned social media platform, isn't somehow going to throw the wrench in this thing. And I'm not sitting here just hoping that a jury convicts the guy. I'm hoping they just get it right. Just get it right. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you I watched all of the testimony or poured over the evidence like they did. I'm dismayed. I'm dismayed that, as we talked about at the start of the show, that the Law and Order Party is fetching about our justice system not working or working maliciously to attack someone, to target someone. And the rest of us who have been talking about this for decades are like, yeah, that's kind of how the justice system has been for a lot of folks, for the poor, for the lacking in connections to those in positions of authority, to the marginalized, the hyper-policed. Yeah, I mean, it's all really... I started this segment, though, because I was just trying to tell you how cynical I've gotten over the years when I see people just knee-jerk, I mean, without even thinking about it, react to someone who's in military service or a veteran on just about any holiday. And by the way, the month of May is like Military Appreciation Month. We're about to get into Pride Month. So anybody who wants to talk about, well, I'm not going to celebrate Pride Month until we get something for our veterans. Yeah, May is Military Appreciation Month. Did you even know that? But you go out on Memorial Day weekend and people are on Memorial Day thanking veterans or those in the military. Thank you for your service. Okay, listen, you can say that every day. But Memorial Day is not about those who are in service or those who did serve. Memorial Day is actually a holiday to honor those who died in service of our country. Speaking of the man who's on trial in New York and in Florida and in Atlanta, Donald Trump on Truth Social, the presumptive nominee of the GOP, the party of Reagan, the party of supposed patriotism, and the pro-military party, the party that gets most of the military and or active military and veteran vote, the leader of that party, the guy who is the nominee of that party, his Memorial Day Truth Social post was, and I'm reading verbatim, "Happy Memorial Day to all, including the human scum that is working so hard to destroy our once great country. And to the radical left, Trump-hating federal judge in New York that presided over, get this, 2 separate trials that awarded a woman who I never met before, parentheses, a quick handshake at a celebrity event 25 years ago doesn't count. $91 million for defamation," he writes in all caps. This is his Memorial Day post. Not a thing about those who died in service. He continues, "She didn't know when the so-called event took place, sometime in the 1990s, never filed a police report, didn't have to produce the, quote, dress that she threatened me with, parentheses, it showed negative." He still hasn't talked about those who died in service. "And sung my praises in the first half of her CNN interview with Allison Cooper, but changed her tone in the second half. Gee, I wonder why. Under appeal?" He still hasn't talked about those who died in service. "The rape charge was dropped by a jury, or Arthur Engeron, the New York State wacko judge, who fined me almost $500 million under appeal for doing nothing wrong. Used a statute that has never been used before. Gave me no jury." He still hasn't talked about those who died in service. That's the presumptive nominee of the GOP, the party of Eisenhower, the party that secures a majority of active military and retired military votes. Meanwhile, the President of the United States, of the party opposite the GOP, the Democratic Party, did his Memorial Day duties at Arlington Cemetery on Monday. Let me give you that.
160 years ago this month, in the midst of the Civil War, the first American soldier was laid to rest at these hallowed grounds. Private William Chrisman, a farm worker from Pennsylvania, had enlisted just 7 weeks before. There was no formal ceremony to consecrate this new sanctuary, no fanfare. It came at a turning point in the war. As fighting shifted east, the casualties quickly mounted in the bloody, grinding campaign. Over the next year, William would be joined in death, as he was in life, by his brother in arms in his final resting place. And these hills around us would be transformed from a former slave plantation into a national shine for those American heroes who died for freedom, who died for us. My fellow Americans, Jill, Vice President Harris, the second gentleman, Emhoff, Secretary Austin, General Brown, most importantly, the veterans and service members, families, and survivors. We gather at this sacred place, at this solemn moment, to remember, to honor the sacrifice of the hundreds of thousands of women and men who've given their lives to this nation. Each one, literally a chain and a link in the chain of honor, stretching back to our founding days. Each one bound by common commitment, not to a place, not to a person, not to a president, but to an idea, unlike any idea in human history. The idea of the United States of America. Today, we bear witness to the price they paid. Every white stone across these hills, and every military cemetery and churchyard across America, a father, a mother, a son, a daughter, a brother, a sister, a spouse, a neighbor, an American. To everyone who has lost and loved someone in the service of our country. To everyone with a loved one still missing or unaccounted for, I know how hard it can be. It can reopen that black hole in the middle of your chest, bringing you back to the exact moment you got that phone call, heard that knock on the door, or held the hand when the last breath was taken. I know it hurts. The hurt is still real, still raw. This week marks 9 years since I lost my son, Bo. Our losses are not the same. He didn't perish in the battlefield. He was a cancer victim from a consequence of being in the Army in Iraq for a year next to a burn pit. A major in the U.S. Army National Guard, living and working like too many besides that toxic burn pit. And as it is for so many of you, the pain of his loss is with me every day as it is with you. Still sharp, still clear. But so is the pride I feel in this service, as if I can still hear him saying, "It's my duty, Dad, it's my duty." Duty. That was the code that my son lived by and the creed all of you live by. A creed that generations of service members have followed in the battle. On the grounds around us lie fallen heroes from every major conflict in history. To defend our independence, to preserve our union, to defeat fascism, built powerful alliances, forged in fires of 2 world wars. Members of the greatest generation who 80 years ago next week took to the beaches of Normandy and liberated a continent and literally saved the world. Others who stood against communism in Korea and Vietnam. And not far from here, in Section 60, over 7,054 women and men who made the ultimate sacrifice in Afghanistan and Iraq, who signed up to defeat terrorists, protect our homeland after 9/11. Decade after decade, tour after tour, these warriors fought for our freedom and the freedom of others. Because freedom has never been guaranteed. Every generation has to earn it, fight for it, defend it in battle between autocracy and democracy, between the greed of a few and the rights of many. It matters. Our democracy is more than just a system of government. It's the very soul of America. It's how we've been able to constantly adapt through the centuries. It's why we've always emerged from every challenge stronger than we went in. And it's how we come together as one nation, united. And just as our fallen heroes have kept the ultimate faith with our country and our democracy, we must keep faith with them. I've long said we have many obligations as a nation, but we only have one truly sacred obligation: to prepare those we send to the battle and to prepare to take care of them and their families when they come home and when they don't. Since I took office, I've signed over 30 bipartisan laws supporting servicemen, veterans, and their families and caregivers and survivors. Last year, the VA delivered more benefits and processed more claims than ever in our history. And the PACT Act, which I was proud to have signed, has already guaranteed 1 million claims, helping veterans exposed to toxic materials during their service. 1 million. For too long, after fighting for our nation, these veterans had to fight to get the right health care, to get the benefits they had earned. Not anymore. Our nation came together to ensure the burden is no longer on them to prove their illness was service-related, whether it was Agent Orange or toxic waste. To ensure they protected them, they just have to protect the United States because it is assumed that their death was a consequence of the exposure. On this day, we came together again to reflect, to remember, but above all to recommit to the future they fought for, a future grounded in freedom, democracy, opportunity, and equality, not just for some, but for all. America is the only country in the world founded on an idea that all people are created equal and deserve to be treated equally throughout their lives. We've never fully lived up to that, but we've never, ever, ever walked away from it. Every generation, our fallen heroes have brought us closer. Today, we're not just fortunate heirs of their legacy. We have a responsibility to be the keepers of their mission. that truest memorial of their lives. The actions we take every day to ensure that our democracy endures, the very idea of America endures. Ladies and gentlemen, 160 years ago, the first American soldier was laid to rest on these hallowed grounds. There were no big ceremonies, no big speeches, no family members to mourn their loss, just a quiet grief of the rolling green hills surrounding them. Today, we join that grief with gratitude. Gratitude to our fallen heroes, gratitude to the families left behind, and gratitude to the brave souls who continue to uphold the flame of liberty all across our country and around the world. Because of them, all of them, that we stand here today. We will never forget that. We will never, ever, ever stop working to make a more perfect union, which they lived and which they died for. That was their promise. That's our promise. Our promise today to them. That's our promise always. God bless the fallen. May God bless their families. And may God protect our troops. Thank you.
Wait, no personal grievances? Seriously, he didn't want to talk about the impeachment, the sham impeachment trial, or the Hunter Biden laptop inquiry. He didn't want it. He just gave a speech on Memorial Day about those who died in honor of service. Huh. Now posture that versus what we had heard and got confirmed by Trump's longest-serving chief of staff, John Kelly. This from CNN in October of 2023.
Trump's longest-serving former chief of staff, John Kelly, is chiming in with his harshest criticism yet. In an exclusive statement to CNN, Kelly says about Trump, "What can I add that has not already been said?" Calling President Trump, quote, "a person that has no idea what America stands for and has no idea what America is all about." For the first time ever, Kelly sets the record straight with on-the-record confirmation of a number of damning details about Donald Trump from background sources, including from a 2020 Atlantic story reported with unnamed sources by editor-in-chief Jeffrey Goldberg, including the stunning detail that Trump turned to Kelly on Memorial Day at Arlington National Cemetery in 2017 and asked, "I don't get it. What was in it for them?" This is Kelly confirming on the record stories of Trump insulting Senator John McCain and former President George H.W. Bush because in Vietnam and in World War II, respectively, the former aviators were shot down. Kelly describes Trump as, quote, "a person that thinks those who defend their country in uniform or are shot down or seriously wounded in combat or spend years being tortured as POWs are all, quote, suckers because, quote, there is nothing in it for them. A person that did not want to be seen in the presence of military amputees because, quote, it doesn't look good for me. A person that demonstrated open contempt for a Gold Star family, for all Gold Star families on TV during the 2016 campaign. And rants that our most precious heroes who gave their lives in America's defense are, quote, losers and wouldn't visit their graves in France. Kelly confirming on the record a story reported in the book The Divider, where Trump tells Kelly he wants a military parade, like one he saw for Bastille Day in France, except he does not want any wounded veterans. Kelly confirming that Trump in 2018 in France refused to visit graves of Americans killed in World War I. To CNN, Kelly calls Trump a hypocrite, saying he is, quote, not truthful regarding his position on the protection of unborn life, on women, on minorities, on evangelical Christians, on Jews, on working men and women. And he concludes Trump is, quote, a person that has nothing but contempt for our democratic institutions, our Constitution, and the rule of law.
Damn right I'm a cynic, more than ever, specifically when it comes to conservatives and the Republican Party. The one thing Donald Trump got right in representing them is when he ran over on stage to hug the flag in that goofy photo op moment. because from him it was fake. And I'm starting to have my questions about their sincerity to patriotism as well. In the home stretch of today's Ron Show, let's end on a light note. Yeah, let's do that. I got just enough time to give you the audio of Randy Rainbow's latest piece of work. This one targeting our friend in Georgia 14, Representative Marjorie Taylor BB Green.
You have become known in Washington for your offensive style, and I don't just mean those shoes. Can't you fight for what you believe in without all of the insulting personal attacks and spitting?
Well, I would ask the same question to the other side, because all they've done is insult me nonstop since I've been here, Leslie. They call me racist. They call me...
Anti-Semitic? Transphobic? Cute clown insurrectionist? Science denier? Bleach blonde bad-built butch body?
I didn't intentionally style myself after President Trump, but I can see how people draw those similarities. We both come from the same industry.
Bullshit.
Construction.
Oh, right.
I also have pretty much a plain speaking style.
You don't seem to let your critics bother you, and I say brava.
I don't let name calling bother me or offend me. I just don't.
Well, I applaud you. I don't believe anyone deserves to be mocked or insulted, no matter how bigoted or reprehensible they themselves may be.
Yeah.
Except for sometimes.
Okay.
Look at me, I'm MTG. Wowsy with stupidity. Trashy as hell, I can't math, read, or spell. Oh well, I'm MTG.
Yep.
Watch it! Hey, I'm back to cry. I made my home in Rome, GA. Advocate crooks, hate all drag queens with books, but love the KKK. Got no Bud Light cans, cause I'm anti-trans. If you're black or Jewish, I'll pass.
No thanks.
Keep them liberals far from my sweet all bust a cap in your ass.
We all want a unified party.
No, Miss Lauren Bowe. You won't outfox News me, ho. Brains ain't my curse. I'm like Trump with a purse, but worse. I'm an MTG. Everybody, look at me. I'm MTG. Grabbing on democracy. Started out fringe, but rose up to unhinge the whole damn GOP. Bring it on, I'm MAGA spawn. Take my cues from QAnon. High on hair bleach, I'll just heckle and screech. Impeach till Biden's gone. Ain't got no decorum, I just ignore them when they say Marge, settle down. Shut up. Cause I get my kicks posting Hunter's dick pics and acting up like a clown.
Marjorie's crazy.
Look at me, I'm MTG, plugging white supremacy. Ain't got no class, I'm moronic and crass. True, I'm profane, all I do is complain. Just a hot mess, Alex Jones in a dress. Oh yes, I'm empty, she's empty, her brain is so empty. Piss off, I'm MTG.
Yep.
Bleach blonde bad-built butch body?
Yep.
Obviously, that'll be in the show notes at ronshowatl.com. I actually went ahead and retweeted it. Do I feel guilty? No, I don't. But by the way, Jasmine Crockett's making a ton of money off of the now infamous clapback. In fact, she has a Crockett's clapback collection that she's making some money off of. Marcus Flowers fundraised like a demon. I mean, just like crazy when he was running against Marjorie Taylor Greene. When he ran against some unnamed person this last cycle, not so well. Marjorie Taylor Greene is a moneymaker for some people. Maybe even herself. That's going to do it. Randy Rainbow as well. That'll do it for The Ron Show. Show notes, ronshowatl.com. Back tomorrow 9 to 10 a.m. on the American One Radio app, americanradio.com. On demand all day at progressivevoices.com or wherever you podcast. We'll see you there.